The day my own daughter looked at me and said, "Mom, you can't stay here anymore," was the day my heart broke in a way I never imagined possible. I had heard painful words before. I had faced difficult moments. But nothing prepared me for the moment when the little girl I once carried in my arms looked at me like I was a stranger. I stood there in the middle of her beautiful kitchen, holding a basket of freshly folded laundry, and I couldn't believe the words coming out of her mouth. "Mom, you need to find somewhere else to live." For a few seconds, I thought I had misunderstood her. I waited for her to smile and say she was joking. I waited for her to hug me and say, "I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't mean that." But she didn't. She just looked away. And in that moment, I realized something that hurt more than leaving the house. I realized I had already lost my daughter long before I packed my suitcase. My name is Margaret Collins, and this is the story of how I lost the family I sacrificed everything for, and how I found myself again when I thought my life was already over. For most of my life, my daughter Lily was my entire world. After her father passed away when she was only 10 years old, it was just the two of us. I became both her mother and father. I worked long hours at a small clothing shop, came home exhausted, cooked dinner, helped her with homework, and stayed awake at night worrying about her future. There were times when I had only enough money for one new pair of shoes. And every time, I bought them for Lily. There were times when I wanted to take a vacation and enjoy life. But I saved that money for her education instead. Because when you are a mother, your child's happiness becomes your own happiness. I watched Lily grow from a little girl holding my hand into a confident young woman chasing her dreams. When she graduated from college, I cried with pride. I remember telling her, "My biggest achievement in life is not anything I have done. It is the woman you have become." And I truly believed I had raised a kind and loving daughter. Years later, Lily married a man named Robert. At first, everything seemed perfect. They had a beautiful home, successful careers, and 2 wonderful children. I was so happy watching my daughter build the life I always dreamed she would have. Then one evening, Lily called me and said something I never expected. "Mom, why don't you come live with us? You shouldn't be alone anymore." Those words touched my heart. After years of living by myself, I thought maybe this was my daughter's way of bringing our family closer together. I sold my small house and moved into their home. I used the money from my house sale to help Lily and Robert expand their business. They told me, "Mom, this will help secure the future for your grandchildren." Those words convinced me. Because when your child asks for help, you don't think about protecting yourself. You think about protecting them. But slowly, the home I thought would bring me love started feeling like a place where I no longer belonged. At first, the changes were small. Lily became too busy to talk. Family dinners became rare. The hugs became shorter. The woman who once called me every day now barely noticed when I walked into the room. Then I became responsible for everything. I cooked breakfast. I cleaned the house. I watched my grandchildren. I ran errands. I did everything I could because I wanted to feel useful. But instead of appreciation, I started receiving complaints. Robert would say things like, "Margaret, since you're living here, you should help more." Those words hurt. But what hurt more was Lily standing there silently. The daughter who once cried when I was sick was now watching me get hurt and saying nothing. Still, I defended her in my own mind. I told myself, "She's stressed. She has too much responsibility. She still loves me." A mother's heart can find excuses for almost anything, even pain. But then one night, I discovered the truth. I was walking toward the kitchen when I heard Lily and Robert talking. I wasn't trying to listen. But then I heard my name. Robert said, "We can't keep doing this. Her room would be perfect for the new office." Lily replied quietly, "I know. We just need to convince her to leave." My hands started shaking. They weren't talking about making my life easier. They were planning how to remove me from their home. The room where I slept. The house I helped build. The family I gave my entire life to. That night, I sat on my bed holding an old photograph of Lily when she was 6 years old. She was smiling. She was holding my hand. And I whispered, "Where did my little girl go?" For the first time, I stopped making excuses. For the first time, I accepted the truth. The person I loved the most had broken my heart. A few days later, Lily finally confronted me. "Mom, Robert and I think it's time for you to move into assisted living." I looked at her. I wanted to ask, do you really want your mother gone? I wanted to ask, was I only useful when I could help you? But I stayed silent. Because sometimes silence is the only way to protect your dignity. I went to my room and packed my belongings. A few dresses, some old photographs, my jewelry, and the memories of a life I thought I understood. Before leaving, I placed one envelope on the kitchen counter. An envelope that contained documents Lily and Robert never knew I had. Then I walked out. I expected to feel broken. I expected to feel defeated. But strangely, I felt something else. I felt free. As I stood outside with my suitcase, wondering where my life would go next, a black luxury car stopped in front of me. The window rolled down, and a familiar voice called my name. Margaret. I looked up in shock. It was Thomas Walker, my late husband's closest friend, a man I had not seen in more than 20 years. He stepped out of the car, looked at my suitcase, and immediately understood something was wrong. Margaret, what happened? For years I had hidden my pain. I had smiled when I wanted to cry. I had said I'm fine when I was falling apart. But hearing someone genuinely care about me broke the wall around my heart. I started crying. Not because I was leaving, but because someone finally saw me. Thomas gently took my suitcase and said, "You spent your entire life taking care of others. It's time someone takes care of you." And those simple words changed everything. Thomas took me to his peaceful countryside home, a beautiful place surrounded by trees, flowers, and quiet mornings. For the first time in years, I woke up without feeling like I had a responsibility waiting for me. Nobody was asking me to cook. Nobody was complaining. Nobody was making me feel like I was a burden. Thomas treated me with something I had almost forgotten existed: respect. Every morning, he would sit with me and drink coffee while we talked about life. He never rushed me. He never ignored me. He listened. And sometimes being listened to is the greatest gift someone can give you. One evening, while we were looking through old family photographs, Thomas asked me a simple question. "Margaret, what happened to the money from your house sale?" I looked at him and smiled sadly. Lily and Robert used it for their business. I wanted to help them build a better future. Thomas became quiet. Too quiet. Then he looked at me and said something that made my heart start racing. "Margaret, are you completely sure that money was used the way they told you?" I felt confused. "What do you mean?" Thomas explained that before my husband passed away, he had asked him to help organize some important family documents. My husband had always worried about my future. He knew I trusted people easily, especially my own family. He had created a private financial arrangement to protect me. And Thomas had kept copies of those documents all these years. When we reviewed everything together, my hands started trembling. There were things I never knew. Things Lily and Robert had hidden from me. The money from my house sale was not simply invested into their business. A large portion of it had been transferred into accounts connected to Robert's personal expenses. They had used my trust as their opportunity. But that was not the only secret. The documents revealed something even more shocking. Years earlier, my husband had left me ownership rights connected to a small investment company he had built before his death. Those shares had grown significantly over the years. Lily and Robert knew about them. They knew I was entitled to them. But they convinced me that everything had been handled properly. They had hidden the truth because they wanted control. While I was cleaning their house, cooking their meals, and sleeping in a small room like an unwanted guest, they were living comfortably with money that was partly mine. I felt a pain I cannot describe. It wasn't the money that hurt. Money can be replaced. But trust? Trust is something that takes a lifetime to build and only seconds to destroy. I sat there silently. Thomas placed his hand on my shoulder and said, "Margaret, you have spent your whole life being kind. But being kind does not mean allowing people to take advantage of you." Those words stayed with me. For years, I thought standing up for myself meant I was being selfish. But I finally understood something important. Protecting your own dignity is not selfish. It is necessary. With Thomas's help, I contacted an attorney. We started investigating everything. Bank records, business documents, property agreements. Every piece of evidence revealed another painful truth. Lily and Robert had built their comfortable lifestyle on my sacrifices. The day they received the legal notice, everything changed. A week later, Lily came to see me. She walked into Thomas's home looking completely different from the confident woman I had known. She looked scared. She looked ashamed. "Mom," she said softly. I looked at her but said nothing. She started crying. I made a terrible mistake. Hearing those words from my daughter should have made me happy. But my heart was still carrying years of pain. I asked her one question. "Lily, did you ever think about how I felt when you asked me to leave?" She lowered her eyes. "I was wrong, Mom. I wanted to hug her. A part of me still wanted to protect the little girl who used to hold my hand. That part of me would always exist. But I had learned something. Love does not mean accepting disrespect. A mother can forgive and still have boundaries." The investigation continued. Robert eventually admitted what he had done. He had hidden financial information from Lily too. The man she trusted had manipulated both of us. The truth was painful. But the truth also gave us freedom. The money that belonged to me was returned. The legal battle ended. But the emotional healing took much longer. Months passed. My life slowly began changing. I started doing things I had forgotten I loved. I painted again. I joined a small community group. I traveled to places I always wanted to see. I laughed more. I smiled more. And most importantly, I finally learned to love myself. Lily and I slowly began rebuilding our relationship. Not overnight. Not magically. Because broken trust cannot be repaired with one apology. It requires time. It requires actions. It requires honesty. But she tried. And I saw that. Every weekend, my grandchildren visited me. We baked cookies. We watched old movies. We shared stories. And every time they hugged me, I felt grateful that I never allowed someone else's actions to decide my worth. Today, I live in a beautiful home of my own. A home filled with peace. A home where I wake up feeling valued. Thomas remained a special person in my life. Not because he rescued me, but because he reminded me that I was never helpless. I only needed to remember my own strength. Looking back, I realized something powerful. The day my daughter asked me to leave was not the day my life ended. It was the day my new life began. Sometimes life breaks our hearts because it is trying to move us away from places where we are no longer appreciated. Sometimes losing people reveals who we truly are. I learned that family is not only about sharing the same blood. Family is about kindness. Family is about respect. Family is about the people who stand beside you when you have nothing left to offer. The people who hurt you may believe you will stay broken forever. But they don't know your strength. They don't know how many storms you have already survived. They don't know that even after being pushed down, you can rise again. I lost a home. I lost my daughter's trust. I lost the life I thought I would have. But I found something much more valuable. I found myself. And today, I wake up every morning knowing one beautiful truth. No matter your age, no matter your past, no matter how many times life tries to break you, you always have the power to begin again. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to our channel for more emotional stories filled with life lessons, love, and hope. Thank you for spending your precious time with us. Remember, kindness is a strength, forgiveness is a gift, and your worth will always be greater than the way others treat you. Until the next story, take care of yourself and never forget, your best chapter may still be waiting for you. Have a good day.